Hi, I'm Lorien Dravock, and my wife's family threw me out of my own house. They changed the locks, packed my things, and told me I had no claim to the place I'd been paying for. Her father laughed. "You were never really family anyway." And she stood there and let it happen. But what they didn't know was that the house wasn't just in my name. It was paid off, every single dollar, from the inheritance they thought I'd wasted. I left the keys on the counter, smiled, and walked out. 3 weeks later, they got the eviction notice. Turns out, you can't live in a house you don't own. And when the real owner decides you're done, you're done. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I hadn't planned on coming home early that Tuesday. The conference in Ashmont Heights was supposed to run through Friday, but the keynote speaker canceled, and they let us go 2 days ahead of schedule. I drove the 3 hours back to Hollowcrest with a coffee in the cup holder and classic rock on low, thinking about how Tahlisse would be surprised to see me walk through the door. The house sat at the end of Wicker Lane, a quiet street lined with maples that turned gold every October. It was a 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a wraparound porch I'd rebuilt myself 5 years ago. Every shingle, every nail, every coat of paint had my fingerprints on it. I'd bought it with the inheritance from my Uncle Gerald, a man who believed in property over promises and taught me to do the same. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Tahlisse's car wasn't there. Instead, there were 3 vehicles I recognized immediately. Her father's black SUV, her brother's red pickup, and her mother's silver sedan, all parked like they owned the place. I grabbed my duffel from the trunk and walked up the steps. The door was locked. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that my key didn't work. I tried it again, jiggling the handle. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I knocked, once, twice, then harder. The door swung open, and there stood Vincent Corvain, Tahlisse's father. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a thick gray beard and the kind of presence that filled a room before he even spoke. He looked at me like I was a door-to-door salesman interrupting his dinner. "Lorien," he said flatly. "Vincent," I replied, "my key doesn't work." He crossed his arms. "That's because we changed the locks." I blinked. "You what?" "We changed the locks. Tahlisse is inside. She'll explain." Before I could respond, he stepped aside just enough for me to see into my own living room. Tahlisse sat on the couch, arms folded, staring at the coffee table. Her mother, Celeste, stood near the fireplace, lips pressed into a thin line. And her brother, Donovan, leaned against the kitchen doorway with a smirk I wanted to wipe off his face. "Can I come in?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Vincent shrugged. "It's not really your call anymore." I stared at him. "Excuse me?" Tahlisse finally looked up. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. "From exhaustion, maybe. Or guilt." "Lorien, we need to talk." "Then let me in so we can talk." Vincent didn't move. "You can talk from right there." I felt the anger rising, but I pushed it down. I'd learned a long time ago that the Corvains fed on confrontation. Give them a fight, and they'd twist it into ammunition. Stay calm, and they'd have nothing to work with. "Tahlisse," I said, looking past Vincent, "what's going on?" She stood slowly, brushing invisible dust from her jeans. "I think it's better if you stay somewhere else for a while." "Stay somewhere else?" I repeated. "This is my house." Donovan laughed. Actually laughed. "Your house? That's rich." I ignored him. "Tahlisse, we need to talk. Alone." "She doesn't need to be alone with you," Celeste interjected, her voice sharp. "You've done enough." "Done enough?" I looked at each of them, trying to piece together what was happening. "What are you talking about?" Vincent stepped forward, filling the doorway completely. "You've been freeloading off this family for years, Lorien. Living in a house you can't afford, pretending to be something you're not." Tahlisse finally woke up. My jaw tightened. "Freeloading? I paid for this house, every dollar." Donovan scoffed. "With what? Your little consultant gig? Please." "With my inheritance," I said coldly. "The inheritance you blew on this money pit," Vincent shot back, "and now Tahlisse is stuck cleaning up your mess." I felt the heat crawl up my neck. I didn't blow anything, I invested it. In this house, in our future. "There is no future," Tahlisse said quietly. The words hit harder than I expected. I turned to her, searching her face for something familiar, some trace of the woman I'd married 6 years ago. But all I saw was someone who'd made a decision and was too tired to fight it. "What does that mean?" I asked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It means I need space. We need space. And you need to leave." "Leave? This is my house, Tahlisse. I bought it. I fixed it. I've been paying the utilities, the taxes, the insurance. You don't get to kick me out of my own home." Vincent stepped closer, his voice dropping to a growl. "You don't have a claim here, Lorien. You were never really family anyway." There it was. The thing they'd all been thinking, but never said out loud. I wasn't a Corvain. I didn't come from money or status or legacy. I was just the guy who married their precious daughter and had the audacity to exist in their orbit. I looked at Tahlisse one more time. She was staring at the floor, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. Or maybe keeping something out. "So that's it?" I asked. "You're just going to let them do this?" She didn't answer. Donovan pushed off the doorway and walked toward me, stopping just inside the threshold. "Here's how this works, Lorien. You leave, you don't come back, you don't call, you don't make a scene, you just disappear like you were never here. And if I don't—" He smiled, the kind of smile that promised trouble. "Then we make it ugly, real ugly. Restraining orders, harassment claims, whatever it takes. Trust me, we've got lawyers on speed dial." I could feel my pulse in my temples, the slow burn of rage mixing with disbelief. But beneath it all was something else. Clarity, because in that moment, standing on my own porch being told to leave my own house, I realized something important. They had no idea. They thought the house was jointly owned. They thought Tahlisse's name was on the deed. They thought I was just another guy who'd lucked into marrying up and was now getting what he deserved. But they were wrong. I took a slow breath, let it out even slower. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my keys and held them up. "You want me gone?" I said, voice calm. "Fine." I tossed the keys onto the porch. They landed with a metallic clatter that echoed louder than it should have. Vincent picked them up, examined them like they were evidence. "Smart move." "I'll need to get my things," I said. "You've got 10 minutes, Donovan replied. "We'll watch." I walked past Vincent, into the house, into my house, the place I'd poured everything into. The floors I'd refinished. The walls I'd painted. The kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands. Every corner held a memory, a piece of work, a moment of pride. Tahlisse stood near the couch, still not looking at me. I walked past her without a word, climbed the stairs to the bedroom and grabbed a duffel bag from the closet. I threw in clothes, toiletries, a few personal items, nothing valuable, nothing I couldn't replace. When I came back downstairs, they were all watching, waiting for me to break, to beg, to make a scene. I didn't. I walked to the door, stopped, and turned back one last time. "You'll be hearing from me," I said. Vincent smirked. "I'm sure we will." I stepped outside, walked to my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw them standing on the porch, triumphant, convinced they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting in a lawyer's office in downtown Ashmont Heights. The building was one of those old converted banks with marble floors and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. I'd made the appointment under the pretense of updating my will, but that wasn't the real reason I was there. I needed to know where I stood. The attorney, a sharp woman named Helena Frost, had looked over the documents I brought, the deed to the house, the mortgage papers, stamped, paid in full 3 years ago, the tax records, the utility bills, everything in my name. Only my name. "This is straightforward," she'd said, tapping her pen against the folder. "The property is yours, sole ownership. Your wife has no legal claim unless you've added her to the deed, which according to these records, you haven't. What if she tries to claim it in a separation?" I'd asked. Helena had leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "Oregon is an equitable distribution state, not community property. But this house was purchased with your inheritance before the marriage, correct? Before we were even engaged. Then it's separate property." She'd have a hard time arguing otherwise, especially since you've maintained sole financial responsibility. You've been paying everything? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Everything. She'd nodded slowly. Then you're protected. If she wants to fight it, she'll need to prove she contributed financially or that there was an agreement to share ownership. Without that, the house is yours. I'd left that office with a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I knew where I stood legally. Dread because I knew what it meant. Tahlisse and I had been drifting for months. The conversations had gotten shorter. The silences longer. Her family had always been a presence in our marriage, but lately, they'd become a weight. Her father had opinions about everything. How I should dress, what job I should take, why I wasn't ambitious enough. Her mother had a way of making every dinner feel like an interrogation. And Donovan, he just enjoyed watching me squirm. But I'd stayed quiet, kept my head down, figured if I just weathered the storm, things would eventually settle. Then came the night 2 weeks ago when Tahlisse came home late. I'd been in the garage, organizing tools, when I heard her car pull in. She walked past me without a word, went straight to the bedroom, and closed the door. I'd given her space. An hour later, I went upstairs and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. "Everything okay?" I'd asked. "Fine." "You sure?" She'd looked up then, and there was something different in her eyes, something distant. "My dad thinks we should separate." The words had hung there like smoke. "What do you think?" I'd asked. She hadn't answered right away, just looked back at her phone. "I think maybe he's right." That's when I knew. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about them. Her family had decided I wasn't good enough, and Tahlisse was too tired to fight them. I'd walked out of the room, gone back to the garage, and sat there in the dark for a long time. The next morning I'd called Helena Frost and scheduled another appointment. "I need to know my options," I'd told her. "If this goes south, I need to be ready." She'd walked me through everything. Separation procedures, property division, what to expect if Tahlisse tried to stake a claim. And then she'd said something that stuck with me. "Mr. Dravock, the law protects ownership, but it doesn't protect relationships. If you're headed for a split, you need to decide what you're willing to fight for and what you're willing to let go." I'd thought about that a lot in the days that followed. The house was mine legally, but did I even want to fight for it if Tahlisse had already checked out? Did I want to spend months in court battles and mediations, dragging out something that was already dead? The answer had come to me on the drive back from that conference. When I saw those cars in my driveway and my key didn't work in the lock, I knew exactly what I was willing to fight for. My dignity. Not the house. Not the marriage. Just the simple, undeniable truth that I wasn't going to be erased. I wasn't going to be rewritten as the villain in their story. I wasn't going to let them take what was mine and pretend I never existed. So when Vincent told me I had no claim, when Donovan smirked and Tahlisse stayed silent, I made a choice. I'd let them think they'd won. I'd walk away clean, keys on the porch, no fight, no drama. And then I'd show them what ownership really meant. I spent the first night at a motel off Highway 29, a place called the Pinecrest Inn that smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. The room had a single bed, a TV that only got 3 channels, and a window that looked out onto the parking lot. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at my phone, debating whether to call someone. But who would I call? My parents had passed years ago. My Uncle Gerald, the one who'd left me the inheritance, was gone too. I had a few friends from work, but none close enough to dump this kind of mess on. Tahlisse had been my person for so long that I'd stopped building other connections. That was the thing about the Corvains. They didn't just take up space in your life. They crowded out everything else. I thought about texting Tahlisse, asking her why she'd let it happen, why she'd stood there and said nothing while her family dismantled our marriage like it was a piece of furniture they didn't want anymore. But I didn't, because deep down I already knew the answer. She'd chosen them, she'd always chosen them. The next morning, I drove to a storage facility on the east side of Hollowcrest and rented a unit. Then I went to the house. I didn't knock this time. I just stood across the street, watching. Donovan's truck was still in the driveway. So was Celeste's sedan. Through the front window, I could see movement. Someone walking past the living room. Someone else in the kitchen. They'd moved in. Already. It was surreal, standing there, looking at my own house like I was a stranger. The porch I'd rebuilt. The shutters I'd painted. The garden bed where Tahlisse and I had planted tulips that first spring. All of it still there, but none of it mine anymore. Or at least, that's what they thought. I watched for a while, then drove to Helena Frost's office. She was waiting for me, file already open on her desk. "I heard," she said as I sat down. "How?" "Small town, word travels. Your wife's family isn't exactly subtle." I leaned back in the chair. "They changed the locks, told me I had no claim, kicked me out." Helena's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. "And you left?" "I left." "Smart." She pulled a document from the file. "This is the deed. Recorded with the county, clear title, your name only. They can change the locks all they want, but they can't change ownership." "What's the next step?" "We file for formal eviction. Since they're occupying your property without permission, they're trespassers. We'll serve notice, give them the legal minimum to vacate, and if they don't comply, we involve law enforcement." "How long?" "Depends on how cooperative they are. If they fight it, could be a few weeks. If they're smart and leave quietly, could be a few days." I nodded slowly. "And Tahlisse?" Helena hesitated. "That's trickier. She's your spouse. Even though the house is in your name, there are legal protections for spouses in some situations. But given that she's allowed her family to take over and effectively locked you out, we can argue adverse possession and denial of access. It strengthens your case. So we start the process." "We start the process," she confirmed. "But Lorien, be prepared. This is going to get ugly. They're not going to go quietly." "Let them fight," I said. "I've got the deed." Helena printed out the eviction notice, had me sign it, and handed me a copy. "This gets delivered tomorrow morning. Certified mail, signature required. They'll have 72 hours to vacate." I folded the paper and slid it into my jacket pocket. It felt heavier than it should have. That evening, I drove back to Wicker Lane. I parked a block away, walked up quietly, and stood at the edge of the property. The lights were on inside. I could hear voices. Laughter. They were celebrating. I stayed there for a long time, hands in my pockets, watching the house I'd built being occupied by people who thought they'd stolen it. But they hadn't stolen anything. They'd just borrowed it, and now the bill was coming due. As I turned to leave, I saw Tahlisse through the window. She was sitting on the couch, same spot as before, staring at nothing. Her mother was talking to her, gesturing, but Tahlisse wasn't responding. She just sat there, looking hollow. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the way she'd stood there silent while her father called me a freeloader. The way she'd let Donovan smirk and Celeste sneer. The way she'd chosen them over everything we'd built. I walked back to my car, got in, and drove away. Tomorrow, they'd get the notice. Tomorrow, everything would change. The eviction notice arrived at 9:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I know because Helena called me the moment the delivery confirmation came through. "It's done," she said. "They've been served." "How long until I hear from them?" "Could be minutes, could be hours. Depends on how long it takes them to process it." It took 23 minutes. My phone rang, and Vincent Corvain's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Lorien." His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. "What the hell is this?" "A legal eviction notice. You can't evict us from Tahlisse's house." "It's not Tahlisse's house," I said calmly. "It's mine." Silence. "Then you're bluffing." "Check the deed. It's public record. County clerk's office. You'll see my name, only my name." More silence. I could almost hear him processing, recalculating. "This is a mistake." "No mistake, Vincent. You changed the locks on my house. You moved in without permission. That's called trespassing. Now you've got 72 hours to leave. We're not going anywhere. Then I'll have the sheriff remove you." He hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone, waiting for the next move. It came faster than I expected. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Tahlisse. "We need to talk. Family meeting at the house. Tonight, 7 p.m. I stared at the message. A family meeting. At my house. The audacity was almost impressive. I typed back, "I'll be there." That evening, I pulled up to Wicker Lane exactly at 7. All 3 vehicles were in the driveway, lights blazing inside. I walked up the steps, and this time, I didn't knock. I just stood there, waiting. The door opened. Donovan. "Took you long enough," he said, stepping aside. I walked in. The living room was set up like a courtroom. Vincent sat in the armchair, the one I'd bought from an estate sale, and reupholstered myself. Celeste perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap. Tahlisse stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Donovan took his position by the door like a bouncer. "Sit," Vincent said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I'll stand." He sighed, like I was a stubborn student who didn't know any better. "Lorien, we need to resolve this, reasonably." "There's nothing to resolve. You're in my house illegally. You have 72 hours to leave." Celeste spoke up, her voice dripping with condescension. "This isn't just about property, Lorien. This is about family." "Family?" I looked at each of them. "You kicked me out, changed the locks, told me I had no claim. That doesn't sound like family to me." "We were protecting Tahlisse," Vincent said. "You've been unstable, erratic. She needed space, and we provided it." "Unstable?" I repeated. "I've been working, paying bills, maintaining this house for 6 years. What part of that is unstable?" Donovan scoffed. "The part where you think you can just throw us out like garbage. You did that to me first." Vincent stood, his full height imposing in the small room. "Listen carefully, Lorien. This house may be in your name on some piece of paper, but Tahlisse has lived here. She's invested in it. Emotionally, financially." "Financially," I cut him off. "Show me one receipt, one bill she's paid, one repair she's funded." Silence. "That's what I thought." I turned to Tahlisse. "You know I'm right. You've known all along." She didn't respond, just stared at the floor. Vincent stepped closer, his voice dropping to a growl. "You really want to do this? Drag your wife, her family through the mud? Make us homeless? You made that choice when you kicked me out of my own house." "You arrogant." Donovan started toward me, but Vincent held up a hand. "Enough." He looked at me, eyes cold. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw that eviction. You're going to sign the house over to Tahlisse, and you're going to walk away clean. No lawyers, no drama, no public embarrassment." I almost laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't," Celeste said, standing now too, "we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. Controlling, manipulative, abusive." "Abusive?" The word hit like a slap. "We'll tell them how you isolated Tahlisse," she continued, her voice gaining momentum. "How you controlled the finances, kept her dependent, made her afraid to leave. We'll paint you as the villain, Lorien, and people will believe us." I looked at Tahlisse. She was pale, eyes wide, but she didn't deny it, didn't say a word. That's when I realized how deep this went. They weren't just trying to take my house, they were trying to destroy me. Vincent crossed his arms. "So what's it going to be? Sign the house over, or we ruin you?" I took a slow breath, let the moment settle. Then I smiled, not a happy smile, a knowing one. "You really think you can do that?" I asked quietly. "We know we can," Donovan said. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "This is the deed. Recorded and notarized. My name, my property, my inheritance." I held it up so they could all see. "You can lie all you want. You can make up stories, but you can't change facts." Vincent's jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, walking toward the door. "You made the mistake. You thought I was weak, thought I'd just roll over. But I'm not going anywhere, and in 72 hours, neither are you, because you'll be gone." I walked out. Behind me, I heard Celeste's voice, shrill and desperate. "You'll regret this, Lorien. You'll regret this." I didn't look back. 2 days later, I was sitting in a diner off Route 9, halfway through a mediocre sandwich, when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Dravock." A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "Speaking." "This is Deputy Clerk Sarah Mendez from the Hollowcrest County Clerk's Office. We've received some inquiries about a property deed registered under your name. I'm calling to verify some information." I sat up straighter. "What kind of inquiries?" "A family member of yours, a Mr. Vincent Corvain, came in this morning requesting copies of the deed to 428 Wicker Lane. He also asked about filing a claim of joint ownership." I felt a cold spike of satisfaction. "And?" "Well, that's why I'm calling. Our records show clear, sole ownership under your name. The property was purchased outright in 2018, with no co-signers, no joint tenancy. But Mr. Corvain was quite insistent that there had been an error." "There's no error," I said. "The house is mine. He's trying to contest something he has no legal standing to contest. That's what I suspected, but he's threatened to file a formal dispute. So I wanted to confirm directly with you. Have you made any recent changes to the deed? Added any names? No. It's been sole ownership since the day I bought it. That's what our records indicate. I'll make a note that we spoke and that you've confirmed the information. If he files a formal dispute, it'll likely be dismissed, but it may take a few days to process. Thank you for letting me know. Of course. And Mr. Dravock? Her voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, we see this kind of thing more than you'd think. Family disputes over property. It gets messy. Make sure you've got a good lawyer. I do. After I hung up, I called Helena. They're trying to file a dispute at the county clerk's office, I told her. Of course they are. She didn't sound surprised. It's a stall tactic. They're hoping to delay the eviction, buy more time. Will it work? Not if we move fast. I've already filed the follow-up with the court. The hearing is scheduled for Monday. If they don't vacate by then, the sheriff will enforce the eviction. And if they keep fighting, then they'll be forcibly removed. And they'll be responsible for any damages or legal fees. Lorien, they're running out of moves. This is desperation. I leaned back in the booth, watching the rain start to streak the diner window. Desperation. That's exactly what it was. And desperate people made mistakes. Monday came faster than I expected. I arrived at the courthouse in Ashmont Heights at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the hearing. Helena met me in the lobby, briefcase in hand, looking sharp and ready. They're already here, she said, nodding toward the hallway. I turned and saw them. Vincent, Celeste, Donovan, and Tahlisse clustered near a bench. They looked tired, worn down. Talisse's eyes were red-rimmed. Celeste's face was drawn. Even Vincent looked smaller somehow, less imposing. When they saw me, Vincent straightened, putting on a show of confidence, but I could see the cracks. The hearing was in a small courtroom on the second floor. Judge Evelyn Ramirez presided, a stern woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. We filed in, took our seats on opposite sides. Helena sat beside me. The Corvains had brought their own lawyer, a young guy in an ill-fitting suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Judge Ramirez reviewed the documents, flipping through pages with a practiced efficiency. Then she looked up. Mr. Dravock, you're seeking to evict the occupants of 428 Wicker Lane, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And the occupants are, she glanced at the papers, Mr. Vincent Corvain, Mrs. Celeste Corvain, Mr. Donovan Corvain, and Mrs. Tahlisse Dravock, your spouse. Correct. She turned to the other side. And you're contesting the eviction on what grounds? The young lawyer stood. Your Honor, our position is that Mrs. Tahlisse Dravock has an equitable interest in the property due to her marriage and residence there for the past 6 years. Judge Ramirez looked unimpressed. Was her name ever added to the deed? No, but did she contribute financially to the purchase or maintenance of the property? The lawyer hesitated. She contributed to the household in other ways. That's not what I asked. Did she contribute financially? Yes or no? No, Your Honor. Then on what basis are you claiming equitable interest? The lawyer fumbled with his notes. Vincent leaned forward, whispering urgently. Tahlisse stared at her hands. Judge Ramirez waited, eyebrow raised. When no answer came, she sighed. Counselor, unless you have documented evidence of financial contribution or a written agreement of shared ownership, there's no basis for this claim. The property is clearly titled to Mr. Dravock. The occupants are residing there without permission. That's trespassing. Your Honor, the lawyer tried again, this is a family matter. Mrs. Dravock is his wife, and she has legal remedies available to her in a divorce proceeding, if that's the route she chooses. But those remedies don't include occupying property that isn't hers. Judge Ramirez turned to me. Mr. Dravock, when did you serve the eviction notice? Thursday morning, Your Honor. And they were given 72 hours to vacate? Yes. Have they vacated? No. She made a note, then looked at the Corvains. You've been given ample opportunity to leave voluntarily. Since you've refused, I'm authorizing the Sheriff's Department to enforce this eviction effective immediately. You have until 5 p.m. today to remove your belongings. After that, any remaining items will be considered abandoned. Vincent stood abruptly. "Your Honor, this is outrageous." "Sit down, Mr. Corvain." Her voice cut like a blade. "You don't get to occupy someone else's property just because you don't like the outcome. This hearing is over." She banged the gavel once, and it was done. Helena and I stood. Across the aisle, the Corvains sat frozen, disbelief etched on their faces. Tahlisse looked like she might cry. Celeste's mouth was a thin, angry line. Donovan stared at the floor. And Vincent, for the first time since I'd known him, looked utterly defeated. As we walked out, Helena leaned close. "That went better than I expected." "They had nothing," I said quietly. "Exactly, and now they know it." Outside the courthouse, the morning sun was bright, almost harsh. I stood on the steps, breathing in the cool air, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Not triumph, just relief. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. "This isn't over." I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. It was over. They just didn't know it yet. The eviction was carried out at 4:47 p.m. that same Monday. I wasn't there to watch. I didn't need to be. Helena called me from her car, parked down the street, and narrated the whole thing. "Sheriff's here," she said. "2 deputies, they're knocking now." I was sitting in my motel room, staring at the wall, phone pressed to my ear. Vincent just opened the door. He's arguing. One of the deputies is showing him the court order. A pause. "Okay, they're going in. Celeste is coming out with boxes. Tahlisse too. Donovan's carrying a lamp. Your lamp, actually. The one with the brass base." "Let them take it," I said. "You sure? It's just stuff." Helena stayed on the line for 20 more minutes, giving me updates. Furniture loaded into trucks. Boxes stacked on the lawn. Vincent's face red with anger as he shouted something at the deputies. Tahlisse sitting on the porch steps, head in her hands. "They're done," Helena finally said. "Trucks are leaving. Deputies are locking up. Vincent just threw his keys on the ground." "Did they take them all?" "The keys? No, they're still on the driveway. I'll grab them for you." "Thanks." "Lorien," her voice softened. "It's over. The house is yours again." I hung up and sat there in the silence. It should have felt like victory, like vindication, but mostly it just felt empty. The next morning, I drove back to Wicker Lane. The house looked the same from the outside. Blue shutters, wraparound porch, maple trees shedding golden leaves across the lawn. But something was different. Lighter, maybe. Like a weight had been lifted. Helena met me there, handed me a new set of keys. I had the locks changed again, just to be safe. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The furniture was mostly gone. They'd taken the couch, the armchair, the dining table, the TV, even some of the artwork from the walls. But the bones of the house were still there. The floors I'd refinished, the crown molding I'd installed, the kitchen I'd remodeled. It was still mine. I walked through each room slowly, taking inventory of what was left and what was missing. In the bedroom, the mattress was gone, but the frame remained. In the kitchen, they'd taken the nice dishes but left the everyday plates. Small, petty theft disguised as moving. Helena followed me through the house, making notes on her phone. "We can file for the value of what they took, add it to the damages." "Don't bother," I said. "I just want them gone." "They are gone, permanently," she hesitated. "Though I should tell you, Tahlisse's lawyer contacted me this morning. She wants to discuss separation terms." "What kind of terms?" "The usual. Asset division, spousal support, settlement. She's claiming emotional distress from the eviction." I almost laughed. Emotional distress. "I know. But that's her angle. She's going to paint herself as the victim, claim you blindsided her, that she had no idea the house wasn't in her name. That's not going to work." "Probably not. But it'll drag things out. Could take months." Helena looked at me carefully. "Are you prepared for that?" I nodded. "I've been prepared since the day they changed the locks." She left an hour later, and I spent the rest of the day cleaning. Sweeping floors, wiping counters, opening windows to air out the staleness. It was therapeutic in a way. Each room I reclaimed felt like taking back a piece of myself. By evening, I was exhausted. I ordered takeout from a place in town, sat on the porch steps with my food, and watched the sun set behind the houses across the street. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Then a car pulled up, not one I recognized, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. It parked at the curb, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. He was in his 50s, salt and pepper hair, confident stride. He walked up the driveway like he belonged there. "Lorien Dravock?" he called out. I stood slowly. "Who's asking?" He smiled, extending a hand. "Nathan Kellerman. I'm with Kellerman and Associates. Commercial real estate development." I didn't take his hand right away. "What do you want?" "I want to talk to you about this property." He gestured at the house. "May I?" I studied him for a moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. He sat on the porch steps beside me, loosening his tie. "I've been watching this house for 2 years. Wicker Lane is prime location. Close to downtown, good schools, low crime. This whole block is ripe for development." "Development?" "Mixed use. Retail on the ground floor, residential above. We're buying up properties, assembling parcels. This house," he tapped the step, "sits on a double lot. That makes it valuable. I'm not selling. I haven't made an offer yet." He pulled out a business card, handed it to me. "But when I do, it'll be generous. 7 figures, Mr. Dravock. Maybe more, depending on the appraisal." I looked at the card. Embossed letters, thick stock, expensive. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I heard about your situation. Word gets around in real estate circles. Eviction, family drama, legal battles. I figured you might be interested in a clean exit. Sell the house, walk away with cash, start fresh somewhere else. And if I'm not interested?" He shrugged. "Then I move on to the next property. But I'm telling you, this is a good deal. Better than sitting here fighting with your ex-wife's family over a house that's just going to remind you of bad memories." I stared at the card for a long moment. 7 figures. Maybe more. That was real money. Life-changing money. Enough to disappear, start over, leave all of this behind. "I'll think about it," I said. He stood, brushed off his pants. "Don't think too long. Development waits for no one." He walked back to his car, paused before getting in. "Oh, and Mr. Dravock? Congratulations on winning your house back. Not many people have the spine to stand up to family like that." He drove off, and I sat there with his card in my hand thinking. The next day, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Gerald Thorne, my old boss from the consulting firm where I'd worked before going independent. We'd parted on good terms, and he'd always told me the door was open if I ever wanted to come back. "Lorien," his voice boomed through the phone. "I heard you've been having some trouble." Word travels fast. Small industry, people talk. He paused. "Listen, I'm in town for a conference at the Grandshire Hotel. Business Development Summit. I'd love to catch up. You free for dinner tonight?" I hesitated. Dinner meant questions, meant explanations. But Gerald had always been fair to me. "Sure. What time?" 7. Meet me in the lobby." The Grandshire Hotel was the nicest place in Ashmont Heights, all marble and crystal chandeliers. I showed up in the only clean shirt I had left and found Gerald waiting near the elevators. He looked the same. Gray beard, sharp eyes, expensive suit that fit perfectly. We ate in the hotel restaurant, a quiet corner table with a view of the city lights. He ordered steak. I ordered pasta. And for the first course, he asked me nothing about the house, or Tahlisse, or the eviction. He just talked. Business, industry trends, mutual colleagues. Normal stuff. It wasn't until dessert that he got to the point. "I heard about what happened," he said, setting down his fork. "The family thing, the house." I nodded. "Yeah. That took guts, standing up to them like that." "I didn't have a choice." "Sure you did. You could have rolled over, signed the house away, walked away quietly. Most people would have." He leaned back in his chair. "But you didn't. You fought, and you won." "Doesn't feel like winning." "That's because you're still in it. Give it time. You'll see." He signaled the waiter for coffee. "Listen, the reason I wanted to meet is, I've got a proposal. We're opening a new branch in Stonebridge. Big city, big clients, big projects. I need someone to run it, someone I trust, someone who knows how to handle pressure." I looked at him. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a partnership. 20% equity, full autonomy, salary that'll make your current income look like pocket change." You'd be building something from the ground up. Your vision, your team, your reputation. The waiter brought coffee. I wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep in. Why me? Because you've got something most people don't. Integrity. You could have taken the easy way out, but you didn't. You stood by what was right, even when it cost you. He took a sip of his coffee. That's the kind of person I want leading my new office. What about the house? The divorce? Work remote for a few months while you sort it out. Once things settle, move to Stonebridge, start fresh. The offer stands either way. I stared at him, processing. This was real. This was a lifeline I hadn't expected. I need to think about it, I said finally. Take your time, but not too much time. He smiled. Good people are hard to find, Lorien. Don't make me wait forever. We finished coffee, shook hands in the lobby, and I drove back to Wicker Lane with my head spinning. A job offer. A real one. A future I hadn't planned for. When I got home, there was an envelope tucked into the screen door. No postage, no return address, just my name written in neat handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Mr. Dravock, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Corinne Halvey. You consulted on my small business loan application 3 years ago when the banks kept rejecting me. You spent hours restructuring my proposal, connecting me with the right people, and you never charged me a dime. Because of you, I got the loan. My bakery has been open for 2 years now, and it's thriving. I heard about what happened with your house and your wife's family. I just wanted you to know that while they couldn't see your worth, others do. You changed my life. Thank you. I read it twice, then a third time. I didn't remember Corinne at first. Then it came back. A woman in her 40s, tired eyes, calloused hands. A dream of opening a bakery but no capital. I'd helped her because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected anything in return. And she remembered. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the kitchen counter. Then I called Helena. I need you to look into something for me, I said. Kellerman and Associates, commercial real estate. Guy came by yesterday with an offer on the house. You thinking of selling? Maybe, but I want to know who I'm dealing with first. I'll dig around. Get back to you tomorrow. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I was even fully awake. Text, calls, emails. I grabbed the phone, squinting at the screen. The first message was from an old colleague. Saw the article. Congrats, man. About time someone recognized what you do. Article? What article? I opened my email and saw a link from Gerald. The subject line read, "You made the news." I clicked it. Business Journal, local section. The headline, Consultant Lorien Dravock takes stand against family injustice, reclaims rightful property. My stomach dropped. I scanned the article. It detailed the eviction, the court case, the Corvain family's attempt to claim the house. But it also included quotes from people I'd worked with, clients I'd helped, businesses I'd consulted for. Mr. Dravock is one of the most ethical professionals I've ever worked with, one quote read. He puts people over profit every time. Another, when I was on the verge of bankruptcy, Lorien spent weeks restructuring my finances pro bono. He saved my company. And another, he's the kind of person who doesn't ask for recognition. He just does the work and moves on. It's about time someone told his story. The article painted me as a quiet hero, someone who'd been taken advantage of by a family that didn't appreciate him, who'd fought back not out of spite, but out of principle. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling exposed and vindicated all at once. Another text came through, this one from Nathan Kellerman. Saw the article. My offer just went up. Call me. Then one from Helena. You're famous. Also, the Corvains are going to hate this. She was right. By noon, my phone was flooded. Reporters wanting interviews. Old friends reaching out. People I hadn't spoken to in years congratulating me. And then, buried in the messages, one from Tahlisse. We need to talk, please. I stared at her name on the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, let her stew in whatever she was feeling. But another part, the part that remembered who we used to be, couldn't quite let go. I texted back, coffee, tomorrow, neutral location. Her response came immediately. Thank you. That evening, I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The article had changed something, not just how others saw me, but how I saw myself. For years, I'd been quiet. I'd let the Corvains define me, diminish me, erase me. I'd believed that keeping my head down and doing good work was enough. But it wasn't. Sometimes, you had to stand up. Sometimes, you had to fight. Sometimes, you had to let the world see who you really were. My phone buzzed one more time, a message from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Dravock, my name is Officer Brendan Quill. I was one of the deputies who carried out the eviction on Monday. I just read the article. I wanted you to know we see a lot of these cases. Family disputes, property battles, people getting screwed over by the ones who should protect them. But we don't often see someone stand up the way you did. You didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't make a scene. You just held your ground. That takes strength, respect. I read the message 3 times. Then I set the phone down and finished my beer. The truth was out now, not just about the house, but about who I was, what I'd built, what I'd given, what I'd stood for. The Corvains had tried to erase me, but you can't erase the truth. You can only delay it. And now, everyone knew. The coffee shop was called Birchwood Grounds, a quiet place on the east side of Hollowcrest with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered black coffee, and took a table near the back. Away from windows, away from the counter, away from anyone who might recognize us. Tahlisse walked in at exactly 3 o'clock. She looked different. Thinner, maybe, dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of the careful styling she usually preferred. She saw me, hesitated, then walked over slowly. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from me. I didn't respond, just watched her settle into the chair, clutching her purse like it might float away. "I ordered you a latte," I said, nodding toward the second cup on the table. "2 sugars, no foam, the way you like it." She looked at the cup but didn't touch it. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." Silence stretched between us. The coffee shop hummed with low conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. Tahlisse's fingers drummed against the table, a nervous habit I'd seen 1,000 times. "I read the article," she finally said. "Everyone did." And it made me realize how badly we treated you, how badly I treated you. Her voice cracked slightly. "Lorien, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I took a sip of my coffee, let the apology sit there, unacknowledged. "My family," she continued, "they convinced me you were the problem, that you were holding me back, keeping me dependent. They said you'd manipulated me into staying in a house I had no claim to." She looked up, eyes wet. "I believed them." "Why?" "Because it was easier than admitting the truth." "Which is?" She swallowed hard. "That I'd been letting them control my life for years. That I'd chosen them over you, over us, over everything we built together." I set my cup down carefully. "When did you know? About the house being in my name only?" She blinked. "What?" "When did you know the house was mine? That your name was never on the deed?" Her face went pale. I didn't know until the eviction notice, I swear." "Don't lie to me, Tahlisse. Not now." "I'm not lying." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. Placed it on the table between us. 3 months ago, you got an email from Ashmont County Tax Assessor's Office. Annual Property Tax Statement. It was sent to our shared email account, the one we used for household bills. Her eyes widened slightly. "The statement listed me as the sole owner. You opened that email, Tahlisse. I have the login history. You read it, and you didn't say a word." She stared at the phone like it was a weapon. I forgot. It didn't register." "You forgot?" I leaned forward. "Or you chose not to see it because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging that your family had been wrong about me all along." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. I picked up my phone, scrolled to another file. 2 months ago, your father called you. I was in the garage. You were in the kitchen. You didn't know I could hear you through the vent system." I pressed play. Tahlisse's voice came through the speaker, tinny but clear. "Dad, I don't know if this is the right move." Vincent's voice responded, gruff and certain. "It's the only move. That house should be in the family. You married him, you deserve half of everything. More than half, considering what you've put up with. But legally doesn't matter. Possession is 9/10 of the law. We get you in there, get him out, and by the time any lawyer sorts through it, the house will already be ours. He won't fight it. He never fights." A long pause. Then Tahlisse quieter. "What if he does?" "He won't, trust me. Men like Lorien, they fold. They don't have the spine for conflict." I stopped the recording. Tahlisse sat frozen, face drained of color. You knew, I said quietly. You knew exactly what they were planning, and you went along with it. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it, she whispered. I thought it was just talk. Just talk? I slid the phone back into my pocket. They changed the locks, Tahlisse. They moved in. They kicked me out of my own house. And you stood there and watched. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was scared. Of what? Of them. Of losing them. Of being alone. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. My whole life, I've been what they wanted me to be. The perfect daughter, the obedient wife, the family representative. I didn't know how to be anything else. So you let them destroy our marriage? Yes. The word came out broken. Yes, I did. I leaned back in my chair, watching her fall apart across the table. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But that part was buried under too many layers of betrayal. There's more, I said. She looked up, fear etched across her features. I pulled out a manila folder from my bag, set it on the table. After the eviction, I went through the house, found some interesting things. What things? Documents, hidden in the back of your closet. I opened the folder, slid out a stack of papers, quitclaim deed forms, blank but filled out halfway. My signature forged at the bottom. Her hand flew to her mouth. Your brother's handwriting, I continued. I had it analyzed. Donovan was planning to forge my signature, transfer the deed to you, and file it with the county, make it look legitimate. I didn't know about that, she said quickly. I swear, I didn't know. Maybe, maybe not. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder. But here's what I do know. Your family conspired to steal my property. They planned it, they executed it, and they would have gotten away with it if I hadn't fought back. What are you going to do with those documents? That depends. On what? On whether you're willing to tell the truth. All of it. On record. She stared at me, conflicted and terrified. You want me to testify against my family? I want you to stop protecting people who used you as a pawn in their scheme. They didn't care about your well-being, Tahlisse. They cared about winning. About taking something that wasn't theirs. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her untouched latte. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. If I do this, they'll never forgive me. And if you don't, you'll never forgive yourself. More silence. The coffee shop felt too small suddenly, too warm. I could see the moment she made her decision, the way her shoulders dropped, the way her jaw unclenched. Okay, she said, I'll do it. I'll tell the truth. I nodded slowly. Helena will contact you tomorrow. You'll give a deposition, everything you know about their plan. In exchange, I won't press charges against you. Charges? You were complicit, Tahlisse. You knew what they were planning and you didn't stop it. That's conspiracy. But if you cooperate, I'll keep you out of it. She nodded, numb. What happens after? To us? There is no us. Not anymore. I stood, leaving the folder on the table. But maybe, if you do the right thing now, you can start figuring out who you are without them. I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Behind me, I heard her crying. Soft, broken sobs that echoed in the quiet space. It should have felt like victory, like justice. But mostly it just felt like the end of something that had died a long time ago. My phone rang as I reached my car. Helena. Tell me you got what you needed, she said. I got it. She's going to cooperate. Good. Because I found something on Kellerman, that real estate developer who made you an offer. What about him? He's been buying up properties on Wicker Lane for months, paying top dollar, way above market value. But here's the interesting part. One of his biggest investors, Vincent Corvain. I stopped, hand on the car door. What? Vincent has a stake in the development company. Has for 2 years. Which means he knew the house was valuable, knew it would be worth a fortune once the development went through. My grip tightened on the phone. That's why they wanted it so badly. It wasn't just about control, it was about money. Exactly. And if they could get the house in Tahlisse's name, they'd profit when the sale went through. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. I leaned against the car, processing. So this whole thing, the eviction, the manipulation, it was all a setup. They were going to steal my house and then sell it to themselves. Looks that way. I'm drafting a fraud complaint as we speak. Between the forged deed documents and Vincent's financial interest, we've got them cold. I closed my eyes, letting it all sink in. The betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't just family drama, this was premeditated theft. "File it," I said, "all of it." "You sure? This is going to blow their lives apart." They should have thought of that before they tried to blow apart mine. I hung up and sat in my car for a long time, staring at the coffee shop window. Inside, Tahlisse still sat at the table, head in her hands, alone. She'd made her choice. Now she'd have to live with it. And so would they. The deposition was scheduled for Thursday morning at Helena's office. Tahlisse arrived at 9, signed the papers, and spent 2 hours on record detailing everything she knew. The planning, the conversations, the deliberate strategy to take the house. By the time she left, her face was blotchy from crying, but the truth was documented. Helena called me as soon as Tahlisse walked out. "We've got everything we need." Her testimony, combined with the forged documents and Vincent's financial stake in the development company, it's an airtight case. "When do we file?" "Tomorrow morning." "But Lorien, there's something you should know. Vincent called my office 3 times today trying to reach you. He knows something's happening." "Let him sweat." "He also left a message, said he needs to speak with you urgently, face to face, alone." I was quiet for a moment. "Where?" "He suggested Harlow Park, the pavilion near the lake, tonight at 7. Harlow Park was public enough to be safe, but isolated enough for privacy. Vincent was smart. He knew I wouldn't meet him somewhere I could be cornered. "Tell him I'll be there," I said. "You sure that's wise?" "Probably not, but I want to hear what he has to say." I arrived at Harlow Park 15 minutes early. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the walking paths. The pavilion sat on a small hill overlooking the lake, empty except for a few ducks paddling near the shore. I took a seat on one of the benches and waited. Vincent arrived exactly at 7. He drove up in his black SUV, parked, and walked toward me with the same commanding presence he'd always carried. But there was something different now. A tightness around his eyes, a rigidity in his shoulders. He looked like a man walking a tightrope. He sat down on the opposite end of the bench, leaving space between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just 2 men sitting in the fading light, years of tension hanging in the air. "You wanted to talk?" I said finally. Vincent stared out at the lake. "I underestimated you." "That seems to be a pattern." He almost smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You know, when Tahlisse first brought you home, I thought you were temporary. A phase. Some quiet guy she'd get bored with in 6 months. Sorry to disappoint." "You didn't disappoint. That was the problem." He turned to face me. "You were steady, reliable. You didn't need our approval, didn't seek our validation. That made you dangerous." "Dangerous?" "To our control, to our influence over Tahlisse." He leaned back against the bench. "We've always been a close family. 3 generations of Corvains, making decisions together, protecting each other. Then you came along, and suddenly Tahlisse had someone else to listen to. Someone else to trust. So you decided to get rid of me." "We decided to remind her where her loyalty belonged." Vincent's jaw tightened. "The house was supposed to be leverage. Get it in her name, give her security independent of you, show her she didn't need you anymore. Except it wasn't about security, it was about money." His expression shifted, just slightly. "I see you've been doing your homework. Helena's thorough. She found your stake in Kellerman's development company. Found the purchase agreements, the projected profits. You were going to steal my house and then sell it back to yourself for a fortune." Vincent didn't deny it. Just stared at the lake, jaw working. "Business is business, Lorien, nothing personal. You tried to steal my home and you're telling me it's not personal?" "The house was always going to be developed. That block is prime real estate. Whether you owned it or we did, it was going to happen eventually. We just wanted to make sure the profit stayed in the family. By committing fraud." He turned sharply. "Don't act self-righteous. You kept that house in your name only. You never added Tahlisse to the deed, never gave her any legal claim. You kept all the power for yourself. I bought that house before we were married, with my inheritance. It was mine to keep or share as I saw fit. And you chose to keep it. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." I stood up, facing him. "My character? You manipulated your own daughter. You forged legal documents. You conspired to commit theft. And now you're sitting here trying to justify it by blaming me for protecting what was mine? Vincent stood too, towering over me the way he always had. But this time, I didn't back down. You don't get it, do you? This family has built something over generations. Reputation, connections, resources. Then some nobody consultant marries in and thinks he deserves an equal share? That's not how this works. I never wanted your family's money or reputation. I wanted a life with Tahlisse. That's it. Then you should have known your place. The words hung there, ugly and raw. This was who Vincent really was, not the concerned father protecting his daughter. Just a man who saw everyone outside his bloodline as less than. Here's what's gonna happen, I said quietly. Tomorrow, Helena files a fraud complaint with the county prosecutor. Your financial stake in the development company, the forged documents, Tahlisse's testimony, all of it goes on record. The DA will investigate, and when they find what I found, you'll be charged. Vincent's face darkened. You wouldn't. I already have. Think about what you're doing, Lorien. You'll destroy this family, Celeste, Donovan, Tahlisse. They'll all suffer because of your pride. They'll suffer because of your crimes. Don't put that on me. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a growl. You think you've won? You think because you have some documents and a testimony that you've beaten us? We have lawyers, Lorien. Good ones. They'll drag this out for years. They'll bleed you dry in legal fees, and in the end, we'll still be standing. Maybe, but everyone will know the truth. Your reputation, those connections you're so proud of, they'll all know what you tried to do, what you really are. His hands clenched into fist at his sides. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing, but he didn't. He just stood there, trembling with rage. I'm offering you one chance, he said through gritted teeth. Drop this, walk away, I'll buy the house from you right now. Fair market value, no strings attached. You take the money, disappear, and we all move on. And the fraud? The forgery? The conspiracy? Gets buried, forgotten, everyone wins. I stared at him, this man who'd spent years making me feel small, making me feel less than. And I realized something. He was scared. Truly scared. Because for the first time in his life, he'd encountered something he couldn't control, couldn't manipulate, couldn't buy his way out of. No, I said simply. No? No deal, no buyout, no sweeping this under the rug. You wanted to play games with my life? Now you face the consequences. Vincent's face contorted with fury. You self-righteous fool, you're going to regret this. I've regretted a lot of things, Vincent. Staying quiet while you belittled me. Believing that being a good husband meant tolerating your family's abuse. Thinking that if I just kept my head down, you'd eventually accept me. I stepped back, creating distance. But I don't regret this. This is the first thing I've done in years that I'm actually proud of. Pride comes before the fall, Lorien. Maybe, but at least when I fall, I'll fall with integrity. Can you say the same? He didn't answer. Just stood there, jaw clenched, eyes burning with impotent rage. One more thing, I said. Tahlisse cooperated. She gave a full deposition. Everything you said, everything you planned, it's all on record now. She chose honesty over protecting you. The color drained from Vincent's face. She wouldn't. She did. Because somewhere under all the conditioning and control, she still knows right from wrong. She just needed permission to choose it. Vincent's hands were shaking now. Not with anger, but with something else. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. You turned my daughter against me. No, you did that yourself, the moment you used her as a pawn in your scheme. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time since I'd known him, Vincent Corvain had nothing to say. I turned to walk away, then stopped. You asked me if I knew my place. I do now. It's not beneath you. It's not in your shadow. It's standing right here, in the truth, where you can't touch me. I walked down the hill toward my car, leaving him standing alone in the pavilion. Behind me, I heard him shout, voice cracking with desperation. This isn't over, Lorien. You hear me? This isn't over. I didn't look back, didn't acknowledge him, just kept walking. Because it was over, he just didn't know it yet. When I got to my car, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. From the rush of finally saying everything I'd held back for years. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel and let myself breathe. My phone buzzed. Text from Helena, "How'd it go?" I typed back, "He tried to buy me off, threatened me, then broke down when he realized it was too late. You okay?" Better than I've been in years. Good, because tomorrow's the big day. Once we file, there's no going back. I know. I drove home through the darkening streets, past familiar landmarks that suddenly felt different. Lighter somehow, like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally been lifted. At home, I poured myself a whiskey, sat on the porch steps, and watched the stars come out. My phone rang one more time. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Dravock?" A woman's voice, older, tentative. "Speaking." "This is Celeste Corvain." I sat up straighter. Tahlisse's mother. "Mrs. Corvain." I need you to know something." Her voice wavered. "What Vincent did, the planning, the documents, I didn't know. Not until today. Tahlisse told me everything. And I'm ashamed. Of him. Of myself for not seeing it sooner. Of how we treated you." She paused, and I heard her take a shaky breath. "You deserved better from us. From all of us." I didn't know what to say. Of all the Corvains, Celeste had been the most distant, the most cold. Hearing vulnerability in her voice was jarring. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Because tomorrow, when that filing goes through, everything changes. Our family, our reputation, everything Vincent built, it all crumbles. And I just wanted you to know that some of us understand why, some of us don't blame you. I'm not doing this for revenge, Mrs. Corvain. I know. You're doing it because it's right. I see that now." Another pause. "Take care of yourself, Lorien. And if you can, somewhere in your heart, forgive Tahlisse. She was caught between us and you, and she chose wrong. But she's trying to make it right." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in hand, processing. Even Celeste was breaking ranks. The Corvain family was fracturing from within. Tomorrow, when Helena filed the complaint, the fracture would become a chasm, and I would be free. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the house on Wicker Lane, boxing up the last of my belongings. The fraud charges against Vincent had been filed, investigated, and prosecuted. He'd pleaded guilty to conspiracy and forgery, received 2 years probation, and lost his stake in the development company. Donovan faced similar charges. The Corvain family reputation, built over generations, had crumbled in a matter of weeks. Tahlisse and I had finalized the divorce quietly. No drama, no contested assets. She'd moved to Portland, started therapy, and from what I heard through mutual acquaintances, was slowly rebuilding a life on her own terms. She'd sent me a letter a month ago. Just 2 sentences. "Thank you for showing me what standing up looks like. I'm learning who I am without them." I never wrote back. Some chapters close without needing a final word. The house sold for exactly what Nathan Kellerman had predicted. 7 figures. More than enough to start fresh. I'd accepted Gerald's partnership offer in Stonebridge and would be moving there next week. New city, new office, new beginning. As I sealed the last box, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a young woman, maybe mid-20s, holding a manila folder. "Mr. Dravock?" she asked. "That's me. I'm Jennifer Patrice. I'm a law student at Cascade University. I've been following your case for a research project on property rights and family fraud." She held out the folder. "I wanted to give you this." I took it, opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Handwritten, typed, some on formal letterhead. "What is this?" "After the news coverage of your case, people started reaching out to the legal clinic where I volunteer. People who'd been pushed out of their homes by family members, manipulated into signing over property, forced out by relatives who claimed ownership." She smiled slightly. "They all said the same thing. They saw what you did and realized they didn't have to stay silent." I flipped through the letters. A man in Ridgemont, whose brother had forged his name on a reverse mortgage. A woman in Ashmont Heights whose in-laws had tried to claim her house after her husband died. An elderly couple whose adult son had attempted to invoke power of attorney to steal their property. All of them fighting back now. All of them inspired by a story they'd read about a man who refused to be erased. "There's something else," Jennifer said. "The State Bar Association is proposing new legislation, stronger protections for property owners, Harsher penalties for familial fraud. They're calling it the Dravock Amendment. I looked up from the letters, stunned. They're naming it after me? Your case exposed a gap in the system. You turned something personal into something that could help thousands of people. She shifted her weight. I just thought you should know. What you did mattered, not just for you, but for everyone who's been in your position. After she left, I sat on the porch steps one last time, reading through the letters. Each one a story of someone finding their voice, standing their ground, refusing to let family loyalty become a weapon against them. I thought about Vincent, about the Corvains, about all the years I'd spent believing that silence was strength. I'd been wrong. Silence was just permission for others to write your story. As the sun set over Wicker Lane, I locked the door for the last time, left the keys on the porch, and walked to my car. The house was gone. The marriage was over. The family that never accepted me had fallen apart. But I was still standing. And somewhere out there, others were standing too. Because of a choice I'd made to stop being invisible. That was enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.